At 13 years old, I was asked to be a featured soloist on my very first European tour, performing for 2 weeks through Germany and France. It was at that point, singing as a soloist for the first time in the Cathedral Notre Dame in Paris, that I realized that this poor Puerto Rican kid actually had a seat at the table. 2 days later, I was scheduled for a full MRI workup of my brain, brainstem, and spinal column. 7 days later, I was in a neuro-ophthalmologist's office, having gone completely blind in my left eye. And sitting next to me was my mother in her wheelchair. And the doctor comes in, best bedside manner ever. He comes in and says, "Yeah, you got MS."
Well, welcome over. It's great to kind of finally get to chat to you one-on-one. I feel like we got to have a good chat back on February the 20th. I remember this quite strongly because it was my birthday. And I
was there. I'm surprised that you remember anything.
It was pretty chaotic. But I did have to share the conversation with, at one point, 9 other people. So, and I've kind of wanted to, because with it being 9 other people, most of which were also comedians, we kind of got onto serious topics and then turned them into punchlines within about 25 seconds. So
that's slow for them. They've been off.
So I've been wanting for a long time, and I managed to get John on a few weeks back, and I'll work my way through all of you eventually, but I've been meaning to get you on for that amount of time, and I keep seeing you pop up on Instagram, so I was like, you know what, just bloody ask. And because I'd procrastinate and sit on things for far too long, so it's great to finally have you over here. I'd like for you to introduce the important parts in your own words, if that's okay. Who is Justin Gonzalez?
Oh, wow. Justin Gonzalez is an interesting human being.
Agreed.
We'll kind of do quick bullet points starting at the very beginning. I grew up in a very working class kind of area, very Caucasian area. I am half Puerto Rican. My father was Puerto Rican. My mother was Pennsylvania Dutch and Lithuanian. So that makes me confused. So there's that. So I grew up in this area where I kind of looked like other people, but then they would see my last name and, I didn't realize it was spelled with a question mark. Gonzalez? Really? Yeah.
It's Latino, so a question mark upside down at the beginning. And then
Right. They didn't realize that they hit the ESP button. Anyway. It was a very poor area, and I was given an opportunity as a young man to audition and go to a very special public middle school and high school in Philadelphia called the Girard Academic Music Program. And I was able to study music and academics at this school for 8 years of my primary education. And in that time, at the ripe old age of 11 years old, my voice changed. At 13 years old, I was asked to be a featured soloist on my very first European tour, performing for 2 weeks through Germany and France. It was at that point, singing as a soloist for the first time in the Cathedral Notre Dame in Paris, that I realized that this poor Puerto Rican kid actually had a seat at the table. And from there, I had these amazing opportunities where I was able to sing for amazing teachers and coaches and performers throughout entertainment. And at 16 years old, I had my debut at Carnegie Hall. Got to sing in some of the most beautiful opera houses and cathedrals around the United States and the world. My career was on a very strong trajectory, going upwards to being an international touring opera singer. And at 18 years old, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which was a very scary thing for me because I intimately know multiple sclerosis because my mother had multiple sclerosis. And over the course of a couple of years, I deal with some things with MS, If I'm walking for extended periods of time, I use a cane. I can't memorize anymore. In opera, you have to memorize multiple pieces of music at once and very, very extensive pieces of music. And I was finding I was having difficulty memorizing small portions of one piece. And that's when I realized I had to figure things out, that opera was not going to be the destination that I thought was in front of me. Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized I needed to take some time. I needed to really sit down and see what were my tools that I had, not just professionally speaking, but also as far as my mental health and my emotional health. And how was I going to, if this thing, entertaining and telling stories and being a musician was so important, how could I, using all of these tools, find a way to salvage it? And I really had to sit down and think about what it is that I love about entertaining, and what it is truly at the end of the day is telling stories. Music, there's so many layers of stories in music. There's the song itself usually tells a story. The composer, they lived their own lives. They have a story that revolves around this piece that they wrote. The first performer that ever sang this piece or performed this piece, they have their story. The audience that listens to it, they have their story. I have my story. And it's when live performance, when all of our stories have breath breathed into it. And it's a very live and vibrant moment. And I realized how important that is, because for 3 minutes at a time, I have the ability in sharing those stories to lift the weight of the world off of someone's shoulders. That for those 3 minutes, they're not thinking about the bill that they're not sure they can pay. They're not thinking about the person that is so dear to them that's in the hospital fighting a battle that the world might not know about. All of that weight, that heaviness in a song is lifted off. And I just realized how important this work is. And so I decided to tell my stories, and not just through classical music. I still perform as a classical musician, but through various styles of music. I have an original music act where I write songs. It's called the Justin Gonzalez Trio. I have a kind of tribute to the casino lounge acts of the 1950s and 60s called the Little Big Band Lounge Revival. I still perform classically as Justin Gonzalez tenor, which, follow me on the things. I think, where is it? It's
everywhere except for Twitter.
Everywhere but Twitter. That's the only thing, don't judge me.
No, it's just because when you said that, you were like, I'm Justin Gonzalez tenor on everywhere. And literally in real time, I was like, must follow on Twitter. And I was like, I can't find you. And you were like, I'm everywhere but Twitter.
And that's the sad truth. The last thing that I've been doing for the last 6 years is I am the lead singer of a group that pays tribute to the studio recordings of a little rock and roll band that you folks may have heard of called Queen. And so, hidden in plain sight. My goodness, I love that.
Totally the reason I wore this T-shirt today.
The reason I wore this T-shirt is because if I didn't, I would be nude, and that's, and I don't want to do that to your followers. That's it. I care, is what it is.
Well, Twitch is one of the rare platforms, although apparently it doesn't, but it claims to treat all nipples indiscriminately, as they're all very wrong, all of them. But it doesn't. There's plenty of topless men on Twitch. But it was at one point said that even if a man's nipple is shown on Twitch, it will be treated the same as and I think it's just down to how many people complain.
And you know what? I don't want to test that theory on this podcast because I care, Dave. I care.
Oh yeah, I've changed T-shirt a few times on stream, and I'm always very, very careful. Just like very demure. It's the one time that I'm quite self. What's the? I can't even think what. Self-conscious. That's the word I can't even think of.
You should start marketing your logo, the brain.
Oh yeah,
as pasties.
Oh,
and wear those when you want to change the t-shirt.
that's not a bad idea.
I'm
The only problem is that the brain itself is it's got cutouts in it, so an errant nipple could easily sneak through one of the gaps. I feel like we've already kind of explored this idea far more quickly than anyone expected us to, but that's kind of what I do. As soon as an idea is put on the table, I think of 46 different ways it can go. Right. Well, Is there? I was going to say because we kind of just gone in a full-on side note talking about nipples. Is there anything more on there before I jump into kind of other questions that you wanted to add?
I think that's me in a nutshell. I mean, of course, that's just kind of like the big bullet points. And I apologize for those that are watching because that is what brevity looks like when I talk.
They're used to me.
I once had a friend say to me, Justin, I love you, but you can talk the balls off a pool table, and it is not a lie. It's true. But
that's my favorite kind of guest, to be honest. It comes up a lot. Like the ones that actually do brevity well are the ones that I'm like, shit, what do I do with this person? That's 20 minutes in. That's all we've got time for, folks. And it's like, it's tough, but. Yeah, there's plenty in your story, obviously, that we can take nice big branches off. Oh, yeah. I suppose what the first place I want to get to is the part where you say you realize you've got a seat at the table, then the MS diagnosis comes in, and it feels like that's kind of taken away. Yep. It's like I'm sure there was. Could you go through the kind of mixed amount of feelings that you had at that time so that we can kind of maybe try and understand it a little? Because I imagine there was feelings about the MS itself, but then extended feelings about how this impacts something that you've not only love, but you're actually doing so well at. It's like so many people have their entire life kind of reaching out for that moment of success and never quite get it. Whereas there's a different story entirely when it's right there, but something comes along and stops you. Like, what sort of impact did that have?
So let's start with the actual diagnosis in the first place. So I was at university. I was studying music, and I noticed in Center City, Philadelphia, I was walking down the street, and I kept listing to the right, and I kept walking into parked cars on the side of the road. And I decided to stop myself, and I did a street corner eye test. I covered this eye, and I read off on a sign. I said, okay, that's fine, great. Reacclimated my eyes, covered this one, and looked at another sign, and there was a gray dot in the center of my field of vision. I went right to the ER, said that there's something going on with my eyesight. I'm starting to feel pain through my eye. My mother has multiple sclerosis, and this sounds similar to something that she has described. Mm-hmm. And 2 days later, I was scheduled for a full MRI workup of my brain, brainstem, and spinal column. 7 days later, I was in a neuro-ophthalmologist's office, having gone completely blind in my left eye. And sitting next to me was my mother in her wheelchair. And the doctor comes in, best bedside manner ever. He comes in and says, "Yeah, you got MS. I'll be back in a second and tell you what we're gonna do." And he left, and I looked over at my mother, and I saw her in her wheelchair, and that was MS to me. I saw my mother go from being a passionate nurse in a hospital to not being able to walk, to fast forward in her story, she, at the end of her life, was a quadriplegic and ended up having a terrible reaction to some medication. At one point had to be put into a medically induced coma and was given a tracheotomy. So at the end of her life was unable to speak and move any of her body. And it was just like, okay, that's what MS is. That's terrifying. Yeah. I was 18 years old. And so I just remember crying and crying and crying. And I was Took a couple of months to get healthy. I was put on a very intense steroid treatment to re-strengthen my optical nerve, and I did regain my eyesight. I also gained well over 100 pounds in 4 weeks. And because of the MS, I was physically unable to get back into the gym and do the things that I once had done
Yeah.
to lose the weight. So not only was I well over 400 pounds, but I was unable to lose the weight in a way that I knew.
Yeah.
And just all of these things were just kind of piling on top of me. And so just trying to stay on top of my mental health. And in that time period, there was a suicide attempt. There was a lot of substance abuse, drinking, and various pills of multiple colors, finding their way into my munching cave. And I, it was a very, very difficult time. But then I decided to persevere, and I got back into training with vocal coaches and all of that. And I started again this climb. I took about a year off, started working with my very first vocal coach, Holly Ferris. And 6 months later, I was offered a 2-week long recital tour in Portugal. I was like, I don't have to go back to college. This is what I want to be doing anyway. If it's happening and people believe in what I'm doing, we're going to do this, and we're going to go hard, and we're going to do it now. And so I started doing recital tours. I started to perform with various groups around the eastern seaboard of the United States. And I was in a very intensive opera program, and I was the lead in La Boheme. It was my very first time cast as Rodolfo. And it's a very, very extensive role. I believe there's only one act that he's not in. Otherwise, he's pretty much in every single scene of the opera. And it was just so much music. And I could memorize the music of Act One, although I would sometimes mix up what was where. And then we got to Act Two, and I just couldn't commit it to memory. If I had the book in my hand, I could sing it like a king. But I just couldn't commit it. And that's when I realized that this is just what was affected by my MS. It was just the memory was gone. So just that whole diagnosis process, it was so incredibly difficult because again, there was this, you were here, you're at the door, and people are saying that, okay, all you have to do is walk through. But it's like, but the screen door was locked. I could see through. And it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating because again, this was something that, when you're 16, 17 years old and people are telling you that you are the next Luciano Pavarotti or the next Placido Domingo, it's like, wow, not only do I have this opportunity, but I have this responsibility. And then to have this thing that you have no control over whatsoever, have so much control over what is not just your dream, but kind of like, again, your responsibility. So it was really, really difficult. I mean, and like I said, especially after the initial diagnosis that led me to, drinking, 4 bottles of wine a day and, taking a bunch of pills that I don't even remember what was what. And I remember an evening where I just was sitting at my desk and I had a sad song on loop and I was just chipping away at my wrist with a razor blade. And it was, one of those things. Like if I can't do this thing and that I was meant to do, and if my future looks anything like my mother's, that I didn't want it. And it was the weirdest thing. Literally, I just shifted my focus. Literally, I just looked at another spot on the wall. And it's like, you know what? These things happen in life to really test how strong you are. This is your opportunity to show people how strong you are. And I gave away all of my wine. I gave away all of my pills. I smoked all of my weed. We'll be honest there.
I love the honesty.
Smoked all of my weed. But it was literally overnight that I decided that I was so much stronger than this, that this was rock bottom, and that I had found a place. Okay, I had found terra firma. Now we can build. And yeah, so I'm not even sure if I actually answered your question. I apologize.
Look, you gave me something that was probably better than the answer to the question. I don't even remember what the question was. It was kind of like, what was that moment like about kind of having all this taken away? And I think you actually did answer that beautifully.
Oh, yeah. So in a nutshell, for all of you, I'll sum it up real quick. It was shitty.
There you go. You've managed brevity. Good
night.
Isn't it? The easy way to manage brevity is to swear about things. I've found this because I don't swear in my big long rants usually, but in my short ones, I'm like, yeah, it's really fucked up. Or it's like, it's shit. So from that kind of rock bottom, what was it like? You know, you've given away all the wine, given away all the pills, smoked away all the weed. What was like? Because I know I've got like my own rock bottom story. Literally happened 12 years ago yesterday. So, and people hear that, and then they hear Mindset by Dave, who he is now. And like, I know that even though you rock bottom's this amazing bungee cord that you've got all this momentum built up, ready to, holy shit, I'm going to do something about this. However, it's not usually like I went from here to here. Like in reflection, that's what you notice. But it's like, okay, what was the journey out of that point like for you?
So, I just like before my multiple sclerosis diagnosis, I fell actually into another pitfall, and that was I was an idiot, and and thought that it was going to be a straight line, just like I planned before. You know, because that worked so well the time before, right? No, it didn't. It was shit, and it was a lot of growth and figuring out. But again, I was like, okay, I'm gonna put my head down. I'm going to study. I'm going to work, because this was also before all the memory issues.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the issue. It was just I had gained all the weight. I was having issues with my eyesight, but I was working with doctors to remedy the eyesight issues. I was working with doctors to at least manage a healthy lifestyle, even though my weight was very, very high. And it was just staying focused and trying to get back on track to where I was going. It was a hiccup in the road at that point towards the goal. It was really then, like 4 years later, when the memory issues started to come into play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it was like, oh my God, that was like the huge speed bump that, like, it wasn't even a speed bump. It was like the road is closed. And that was a real punch to the gut. It was like, wow, this thing that I have been working for 11 years is no longer mine.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, no, it's a Gonzalez with the S at the end. Sorry, we're taking your seat back from the table. Sorry, friend.
I was going to say I did look for it with an S at the end the first time, but even though it was there on my screen with the Z at the end,
that's always the problem. I have to say, with the S, that's usually traditionally the spelling from people from Mexico, and the difference. People from Mexico or Mexicans are from Mexico. Puerto Ricans were from New York City. Very, very different.
Well, I mean, considering my real name's on your screen right now, do you want to have a pop at pronouncing that? Because Americans never get it. I'm not sure where Puerto Ricans from New York City get, whether they get it or not, though, because you're the first one I've asked.
So I was going to say Cottrell.
That's how most Americans say it, yeah, Cottrell. Yeah. I pronounce it as Cottrell, and that's
Cottrell.
like so it's more of a co rather than a k.
Yeah.
But yeah, because of Kim Cottrell, which is spelled Cottrell, that's why most people actually spell it the other way around. And it's the main reason that that my original brand before Mindset by Dave was Dave Cottrell, mindset coach, and which first of all doesn't run off. I was determined back then to get my actual name to be a brand, and then I realized I had a name that was hard to spell because there's a single T version of it, there's a single L version of it, there's the Cottrell, there's the Cottrell. So I'm used to. I mean, no one gets Dave wrong, thankfully, but but no one ever gets my surname right. So
Dave. Oh, I thought it was a Dav.
Dave. Mindset by Dave. It sounds like it's the new fragrance from Dave. It smells like success.
and wet taint.
It went there. Sorry, it does smell a little bit like wet taint. And just in case anyone glanced past that was wet taint, not wet paint. Okay, we went a little bit.
Wonderful.
We went a little bit degenerate. Okay, so what happened next from that point of once the memory issues started kicking in, and obviously they spelled your name wrong on the season pass and so on. What was the next move from there?
Well, again, it was another kind of like. It was a slip, It's like I was climbing out of this pit of, this Princess Brydian pit of despair that I'm, trying to climb out of, and I had this setback. It was like, okay, you're climbing towards this opera career, and it's just not going to happen. It's just not this way is not going to happen.
Yeah.
It actually reminded me of something that was told to me when I auditioned for American Idol. And I was not accepted, which I'm sure you all figured that out because none of you know who the fuck I am. So
we also don't watch American TV, so
well, there's that. Yes, which is wise.
It's also not true. we don't. I've never watched American Idol, but I've only ever watched like 2 seasons of the UK version of it, and it was like, nope, that's enough. Because actually, they quite often pass people who are quite literally dreadful just because that makes good content.
Yeah.
And people like your good self often get passed by in favour of such comic relief, shall we say?
And the year that I auditioned, like I said, I got passed over. And I watched a man dressed as a monk who then took off his robe and was wearing a hula skirt and coconuts. I saw him get passed on.
I mean, that's just good television.
That's great television. That's great television. And I do not fault them one bit for doing what they did. But I remember them saying, and first off, the auditions, there's 13... At this audition, there were 13 casting directors, literally at tables next to each other, and 4 performers at once. This is the actual first round of things like this. 4 performers at once, and you get 7 seconds to sing. And now there's thousands of people. You're in a stadium, and there's people in front of you in the seats, and so people can see you. And well, again, I'm trained to be an opera singer. I sing in places that seat thousands of people. I'm trained to sing in those venues without a microphone and to be heard. So I actually start singing a song by Sir Tom Jones, and the crowd goes fucking crazy. They go nuts. And the producer says, "Yeah, thank you. None of you, are really what we're looking for, but we appreciate it. Have a great day." And thousands of people start to boo as I'm walking away. And that felt good. I mean, I'm not on the show, but I'm glad to hear your protest. The head producer ran up to me and he said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" I said, "Yeah, sure, Mr. Producer, absolutely." He says, "You have just an amazing instrument. You really, really do. This is television. And television, especially reality TV, as I'm sure you know, isn't real. It's scripted. We have an idea. We have an idea where we want. Yeah. We have an idea. And if memory serves me correctly, I believe that was the season that Adam Lambert was on. Okay. So I mean, he's okay. Joking, Adam. I love you.
I was going to say,
but
that should have been you fronting Queen.
Hey, there's always next year. But it was a situation where he just said, keep doing what you're doing. There's many ways to get to Hollywood. This is one way. Come back next year, come back the year after that, but keep trying all of the avenues because there are so many ways to get to where you have to go. And so here I am, and my memory is leaving me. There's some things stick and some things not so. And I was having this difficulty, and I realized, okay, opera isn't my way to the stage. It's not going to be my way to the stage, and that has to be okay. So what is the other avenue to the stage? What is the important thing that I can share that no one else can share that will pave my way? And that's when I realized that it was the telling of stories, and not just the stories of the music and the performers and the composers, but also my experience, because at this point I had already been performing internationally for 12 years.
Yeah.
And that's great. First off, at that point, so this past spring, spring into summer, I celebrated 20 years from that first tour. I've been doing this for 20 years. I haven't been tying my shoes correctly for 20 years, but I've been doing this for 20 years. And it's so humbling, to think about all of the stories I've acquired, all of the stories that I've lived, all of the stories that people have told me because I sang a song and it just brought back a thought that they haven't thought in decades, and they want to share this story with me, and it becomes part of my story. And the fact that I have this opportunity now that I found that, okay, well, if I can't go up the east side of the pit, maybe let's try the west side. And let's try to see if we can still find our way to the stage, to the top of this, and get the spotlight on our face again, and in a way that's maybe even more important than being an opera singer would have been. So that was kind of the next step after all of that.
Nice. So, okay. So, what does that look like? That's it as a concept and an idea. What does that look like practically?
Very impractical. Yes, and that's again, it's not there's not a clean road. This was literally, being an opera singer was a paved road before me. Being a musician with multiple sclerosis, a storyteller with multiple sclerosis, with memory issues and balance issues, that was something that, the road was still dirt.
Yeah.
And so I definitely, I stubbed my toes on many rocks. I failed many times. I didn't fail. I found myself in situations where I didn't receive the outcome that I wanted. And so I acquired education. I learned lessons. Maybe in the moment it felt like a failure because I didn't get the thing that I wanted, but I ended up getting exactly what I needed, which was, again, learning what, I don't want to say limitations, but I learned what my boundaries were. I learned how to better respect myself and what my strengths were, what were the things that would be least effective. I don't like to necessarily say weaknesses. That seems like such a negative way of looking at it. So
yeah,
that's another big thing is, through being diagnosed with MS and all the things that come with that, just understanding the power of positivity and the fact that I am the one who has the power to look at a situation and say, I can look at the negativity and I can fill up my pockets with that. And I can anchor myself to this moment and this space. Yeah. Or I can look at it, I can take what feeds me so that I have the strength to move forward, and I take with me the thoughts of the things that made me feel weak so that I can be stronger and move past them the next time I encounter them. So that was a lot of that education. It's just, again, learning, okay, what are my strengths? And again, finding those tools and that raw material to build moving forward. And I've been very fortunate that in moving forward, I have had the opportunity to cross paths with some very wonderful people. And they had been very vocal about, after hearing my story and seeing what it is that I can do, about how much they are appreciative of my art and my story and my truth and my testimonial. And we started to grow. We started to grow into something that I never ever thought that I would be, and that's a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
The stories are usually told through music and always through humor, because I wake up, I look in the mirror every day, laugh all the time. So, and that's just it. It's just that there is so much humor and there is so much joy and love and just wonder and excitement in every bit of it, even the darkest parts of it, because it's the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth, and it's reality, and it's something that, I have the sometimes it feels like a nightmare, but the pleasure to live every day. I woke up this morning and I had breakfast with a lovely lady, and we had coffee and tea and wonderful conversation. And I think, if I was 18 years old and I didn't change my focus, that I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here to realize that I was finally on solid ground and that I could build and that I could build.
Yeah. I think a really sort of powerful part of your story is when when you get that first diagnosis and you look at your mother and you're thinking, like, instead, the way our minds work, instead of saying this is me in X amount of years, your brain just goes, this is me. Like, it's, and the thing is that I think it can be very, very quick at that point to kind of dismiss all of the other possibilities. That might be a someday. It might not be a someday. I think a lot of people that I know that with whether it's chronic illness or whether it's mental illness, I often talk about this because I was told a very brief thing about bipolar disorder when I was diagnosed at 14. I was told, you're either going to feel like this or you're going to feel like this. It was and there was no internet. It was 1996. There was a very brief early version of the internet, but I couldn't go and do additional research. So I'm like, this is your life now. And that became, you say storytelling, that became this, like, the stories we tell to other people are very important. Stories we tell to ourselves dictate where we go in life. And to me, I told myself the story of I'm either here or I'm there for about 14 years. And it wasn't until I was about 28 that I learned the phrase, this too shall pass, which basically made me say, okay, because I was telling the story that I'm either here for a short space of time or I'm always here. I'm always low. Both of these two things couldn't possibly exist at the same time, because if I'm always low, then I'm never high. And if the highs come down, then the lows come up too. But let's just forget that for a second. It's possible to believe two contradictory things at the same time.
What?
Exactly. But that was my entire reality until somebody taught me any different. And I didn't even, I don't know if I'm not ashamed, because I don't really do shame. Shame's bullshit. But, I didn't go and research this further. I didn't, when the internet arrived or when I could have gone to the library. I'm not sure that the library in Anfield in Liverpool had many books on bipolar disorder in the 90s, but I didn't do any additional research. I didn't even begin to work with what the other possibilities of my life could be until I hit rock bottom. And if we tell ourselves this is the story, then we start believing and start acting like this is the story. And I think that's kind of where your story went at one point, and then at a stage you're like, actually, I can write a different story.
That's, it was, and I'll be honest, seeing what happened to my mother. So both of my parents are gone. My father was an addict, and he lived a very, very difficult life. In the last 5 years of his life, he was able to clean himself up. And for the last 5 years, I had a father. I had a dad, and we were able to have that relationship. But he had a number of pre-existing conditions outside of, obviously, the torture he put his body through with substance. My father passed away just shy of his 59th birthday. And my mother passed away at 62. So let's split the difference. We'll say that my parents both went around 60. I turned 34 in October. I'm already playing the second half of the game. Like that's like, like how my brain thinks. Like I did not win the genetic lottery, and so there's still like these stories again, that we kind of tell ourselves, and that's one that I kind of have been recently telling myself that I have been sharing openly because that's how I feel. But I also understand that my feelings aren't true. That feelings aren't necessarily truth. They're truly how I feel, but there may not be fact and logic. I also, God forbid, I might live till I'm 90, like how many more fucking days are there? Let's be honest. But, I could. And, like my neurologist even says the fact that everything that I currently deal with as far as symptoms and all of that, he says it's unbelievable that for 15 years I have gone pretty much unmedicated. And the fact that I have so many of my faculties that I'm not spiraling, down this rabbit hole. And again, knock on wood, that it continues to be that way. So like that's very much so like the stories, and I still do it. I think we all do, and no matter how good we think we are at things, I have a friend who is in recovery from addiction, and he always tells me whenever I talk about stuff like this, and he says something that they say in their meetings, and that you're not drunk proof. And that's it. My own version of drunk. I'm not drunk proof. And again, telling that story of I'm playing in the second half, that I've got to do what I'm going to do, or else it's never going to get done. And that kind of thought, is one of those sad truths that even now I still kind of fear and I live in. Then again, seeing my mother in the wheelchair and seeing the fact that she went from, wearing her white nurse shoes and, working 12 hours a day, helping sick people, to then over the course of 6 years becoming one of those sick people in such a drastic way. I mean, that was terrifying. And again, to see someone who lost the opportunity to pursue and perform their passion. How I talk about music and storytelling, that's how my mother saw nursing. And to see that, it was devastating. It was devastating to see all of that taken away from her. And then here I was, 18 years old, pursuing a degree in music performance, like a good black sheep of the family. And despite the fact, like, again, I sang at Carnegie Hall. I had sung, with Sir Rod Stewart. I've sung, I performed again with all of these people for the, President Clinton and, all of these, politicians, Prince Charles. I had all these opportunities to sing for all these amazing, people, as far as pop culture and, names that we know. And still my mother's like, but when are you going to get a job?
Like, don't even want to know what my mum thinks about me being a streamer. It's funny because I've recently started working for the health service over here. I do 1 day a week, it's like subcontracted for them, right? And then my mum the other day was like, I'm just so proud of you about that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. I'm like, it's like a really minor part of what I do as far as I'm concerned. It's a privilege to be able to do it. And it pays more of my bills than everything else I do. But ultimately, for me, like the turning up for people here and being there and giving time and giving space to people that are struggling one-to-one or in groups like this, that's the bit I'm proud about. I'm more proud about the stuff that I don't get paid for. I'm more proud about like being able to be there for those people. Yeah, it's nice for my imposter syndrome. to be picked up by the NHS, because you often think, if I'm mostly self-educated for all of this, how the hell would I ever get a job? And then they go, actually, we really like the way you teach things. We want you to teach these things for us. That's actually quite a nice bit of validation. Yeah. But ultimately, it's funny how parents, I don't know, it's that poem that I read before we started, normal, like, yeah, okay, ordinary. You could have gone and been a computer programmer, like, which there's no shame in being computer programmers. Like, we're all being able to do this right now because computer programmers exist.
Thank you.
But yeah, exactly. We love you. But it's like, or you could be an opera singer, or you could be, or you could be a rock singer, or you could like move audiences to tears. And it's just that we're told to kind of do the normal or safe thing. Yeah. To be fair, I was very, very proud of my eldest son, who's just about to start UK version of college, which is like the last 2 years of your high school, and then our college is university. And basically, he's taken one of his courses. He wants to do film. That's his main thing, right? Nice. And he's taken accountancy as his backup because he's really good with numbers. And he's like, well, if the film thing doesn't work out, I'll have that as a backup. And that was him making that decision. At no point was I like even interfering with what he chose. But I thought it was, he's got the whole somehow passion thing and logical thing going on at the same time, which makes him significantly more capable than I am, but because I've just got the passion. Where's the logic? But yeah. Anywho, I've done that thing again where I've gone off topic. I do this a lot. Within MS, I take it there are very, very, very many different ways in which that illness can present itself.
Yeah. Again, there's so many people that have MS. Selma Blair was a recent person in pop culture who had come out, I think, just before COVID, with her story of having MS and how it affected her ability to walk and her ability to speak. There's people like Montel Williams, the talk show host. Yeah. Who
don't worry, we really do watch a lot of American TV. I was lying before.
So Montel Williams, he still goes skiing and all of that. He's still is very physical and all of that. Richard Pryor, died unable to speak and in a wheelchair. There's so many different things. Some of the symptoms that I personally deal with, the two that I love to start off with is, of course, like many people, I deal with chronic fatigue, which is not just being tired. It is being exhausted all of the time. No matter how much sleep I get, how much rest I get, how much downtime, I'm always in a state of exhausted. I also deal with chronic insomnia.
So are you sure that chronic fatigue's there no matter how much sleep you get? Because you clearly don't get any.
Well, here, again, it's amazing because I don't sleep so much as I do fall into small bouts of coma. So that's really it. It's like I just function, and I have to always be gauging my energy because there's going to be that moment where it's like, and we're done. And that's just it. It's just like, it's like, okay, great. Now we're going to do things. And now I'm a corpse. And then it's like, okay. And then I'll wake up in, maybe 4 or 5 hours and I'll have enough energy to, exist for another 8 to 10. And then I'm down for another 4. And that's just kind of my cyclical life. And that's just how it is. Yeah. So those are the two big things that I deal with. Next would probably be the memory. The fact that I have the issues memorizing large chunks of information quickly. I used to be able to do that very well, not so much anymore. I stumble over recall of words. There's a name for that, and guess what? I forgot it. But I'll be in a conversation and I will forget a term, or I'll forget, or not be able to think of how I want to, how I want to describe something. And it's just, so I have these moments of, and I just own up to it and I say, I apologize. I can't think of it. Broken brain. Moving on. And
Yeah.
so, and that's it, and I just have to own it, and just that's what it is. So the memory and those sorts of cognitive issues. My hands also, the way I describe the sensation of feeling in my hands is that I'm wearing compression gloves that are a size too small. So I feel like through a layer, and my hands are always very tight. Another thing that I used to do that I can't do any longer is I was a sleight of hand magician. I specialized in cards and coins, and it's something that I would do on my tours as well. I just, again, I used to be able to do 2-hour shows of, sleight of hand and all of this. And I can do like a good 15 minutes now. I feel it's like sex, now that I'm older, it's like, God, I used to be able to go for hours, and now it's like, okay, I'm good for like 15 minutes, and 10 of it's cuddling. So
the question is that 10 cuddling before or cuddling after?
Yes.
Amazing.
So those are and the walking issue, the balance, which for anyone that's watching, from me pushing the advertisements, you folks in the States that have seen me perform with the Killer Queen experience, when you see me dancing on stage, I am doing one of two things. One is I'm trying not to fall, which is just the reality. And I actually kind of stole that from a famous actor named David Landers. He was Squiggy on Laverne and Shirley. And he, in 15 years of him acting and all of that, for 15 years, he hid the fact that he had multiple sclerosis. Right. And he hid it in how his characters walked and how they functioned. And that's what I partially do on stage. The other thing that I do, that I'm doing, I'm usually not dancing. I am walking center stage because I have a pedal on stage. Everyone thinks that it's some sort of vocal processor. It is a Bluetooth-enabled page turner because I have a fake monitor on stage that has my lyrics.
I was wondering about that, whether you found a hack for that.
And the answer is yes. It looks like I have an audio monitor on stage, but it's actually a television screen hooked up to an iPad, and I have a foot switch to turn the pages. And so I have the full show in order from soup to nuts, beginning to end. And and that's it. I just progress through, and again, I'm dancing. I do a little couple like nice little properly placed, foot stamps and page turns, and okay, great. Yeah. So again, you find your ways. A lot of people, okay, I don't sing opera anymore, but I do sing classically. I do a lot of cantata and oratorio singing, because when you sing in a cantata or an oratorio, you can hold the book. And so I do performances where I can hold the book, and it's very, very rewarding. And I still get to, use this instrument the way I was trained to use it. So there have been kind of like these life hacks that I have found. I found these ways around. Again, it's a serpentine kind of path that I found, but that's life. I would sometimes go into colleges and universities and schools and tell students about my story and say, two fables. One is you think it's going to be a straight line, and it's not. It's not. You think it's going to be a straight line to your... Okay, three things, 3 points. Okay, first, you think it's going to be a straight line. It's not. Second, you think that you're in school because it's going to get you to a destination, when actually this is a hardware store. You're here to acquire tools to carry with you for when you do hit those detours, those potholes, those serpentine motions that you weren't expecting. You have the tools to be able to navigate it. And the third thing is being the accountant, being the computer designer, being the opera singer. You think that's the destination, and it's not. The destination is to be happy. Mm-hmm. That's it. Those are the three things. And I'm reminding of myself all of those things every day. And some days I believe them. Some days I no longer drink 4 or 5 bottles of wine, but they're over there in case I need them.
I mean, I got 3 bottles of wine delivered the other day for giving a mental health talk at a university. It's like, reward the mental health speaker with 3 bottles of wine. I'm like, I'm cool with it. It's, and in fact, the best thing was there was 2 of us that spoke, and they sent 6 bottles, 3 red and 3 white, and he wanted the white and I wanted the red. So, oh my God, if that's not serendipity, I don't know what is. I've got one more question before we throw it over to people in chat.
Sure.
But it's already actually been asked in chat as well, which is how does the world react to MS in your experience?
Oh, that's cute. You think the world reacts to MS. And I think that's the reality, is because you see a guy like me in front of 2,000 people running around on a stage, and you see a guy like me standing, in front of 30,000 people singing on a parkway, to an audience, or you see me in front of a group of a few hundred people sharing my stories. And you look at me, and 9 times out of 10, I hear the thing that I hate to hear most of all. You don't look sick.
Yes, I knew that was coming.
You don't look sick. And guess what? There's a lot of people that don't look sick. There's people with terminal cancer that don't look sick,
Yep.
But guess what? They're dying, soon. So, fun fact, go fuck yourself. But that's how MS, especially though, because, and I can't tell you how many times people have said things that would maybe not be so pointed as to say this, but essentially why are you so lazy?
Mm-hmm.
Or why don't you just exercise more? Or why don't you just fill in the blank? Because everyone's an expert because they know somebody who has a mother who knows a barber whose uncle has what I have. And they know.
Yeah.
They ate kale and raw garlic for a week, and they were cured.
Delicious.
So they know. Yeah, it does sound delicious, actually.
Actually, a bit of kale. Well, yeah, maybe not raw. You saute it up. We've got a little drizzle of olive oil on there. Maybe a few chili flakes.
Right.
I mean, let's face it. It might not. Yeah, exactly. It might not cure your MS, but it might make you put a smile on your face for 10 minutes.
Yes,
and being happy is the goal, right? So
the destination is being happy. Absolutely. But again, because, and first off, people first always say oh my goodness, isn't that the thing that Jerry Lewis used to raise money for? No, that's muscular dystrophy. And I don't have that, thank goodness. But what I do have sucks in its own personal way.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough because, again, people, they think that I'm lazy. They think that I'm blowing them off. I mean, they don't, people don't understand that there's a lot of emotional stuff that Art Alexakis, the lead singer of the band Everclear, he has MS, and he wrote a song called "The Hot Water Test," and there's a line in it that says, "Easy can be hard to do," and that was so powerful to me. I'm choking up now just thinking about it because, for the first time in a very long time, just hearing that line, I felt so seen.
Mm-hmm.
Because answering an email, answering a text, picking up the phone just feels so impossible some days.
Yeah.
And the fact that so many people don't understand it is a special kind of hell, especially when these are the people that are supposed to love you and care about you, and they're supposed to be your partners and your teammates, and they don't get it. And they don't, again, the fact that expectation can be the thief of joy, and that these expectations that I'm going to be normal all of the time. And I have moments of normal. I do. And I have moments of very abnormal. And it's not, it's okay. Well, I spend so much of my day being still and being contemplative so that when I have to be active, I can be. And people don't see that behind the scenes. They always see the greatest hits. They see me standing in front of a few thousand people going, "Hey-oh!" and, and having them sing it back to me. and it's pretty cool, and that's really awesome. It's me wearing a golden sequins jacket and a oversized top hat. It's pretty spectacular thing to see. But
Yeah.
they also don't see me afterwards, unable to move and hobbling to my car with my cane and being in such excruciating pain that I can't fall asleep, even though I am beyond exhausted. Um, you were all saved from seeing that, and you're welcome.
I mean, I was only saying this before we started talking today, which was because up until 8 o'clock this morning, when I managed to drag my ass out of bed and go and do Muay Thai, and then I got to punch, kick, knee, and elbow my way through an hour of slaying my demons. I didn't want to get up today. I barely got out of bed yesterday. I just about got out of bed on Sunday to go and see my mum. And my mum's in very ill health at the minute, and it's the kind that's probably never going to get better. So, and that's kind of like that amongst in the midst of just bipolar disorder going, hello, you've been happy for 6 weeks. This is unacceptable. We shall pull out the rug from underneath you right now.
And now the pendulum will swing.
Yeah. And 3 years ago, I would not have shown up today because of that. I'd have been like, no, I've got the entire world needs to see that mindset by Dave has got it all fixed. And I literally, it was November. It will be 3 years ago this November. I was sat in the gym that I used to work in. I was like in between clients, and I was just there, absolutely miserable. And I'd never really want to put the sad-faced selfie up or anything like that. And I was like, all I've done for the last, probably at that point, about the last 2 or 3 years, had shown the good side of bipolar. All I'd ever done is show I can be productive too. This can be a superpower. Like, I don't think it was ever toxic positivity, but it was certainly like, I only want to show this side of it. I want people to kind of know that they can come through this. I want them to know that there's life beyond what they might think. And I'm like, I'm not telling the whole story, and people aren't seeing the whole story here. And if I was perfectly honest, why I didn't want them to see the whole story wasn't because I was embarrassed of it or anything like that. It was because I genuinely thought no one will ever hire you as a coach. No one will ever want you to come and speak at their event. No one will ever want you to do this if they know that you still struggle. And then something in my head that day was like, fine. It's like because, and there's an expression that I really love to say, which is I'd so much rather someone hates me for who I am than loves me for who I'm not, and that was it. I decided at that point to kind of share where I was in that moment. And there's basically this little handy graph that we have now as well, which is wherever your mental health is, whether you're 0% today or you're 100% today, your value is always 100%. Like, your mental health can fluctuate, but your value might not. It never will. It's the same for you. Your physical health may fluctuate, but your value as a human never does. Always 100%. And for me, it's all well and good turning up and telling people that, but like, I need to live that as well. I need to basically say, you know what, actually I was a 1 out of 5 when I woke up. After Muay Thai, I went up to a 3 for about 20 minutes and then settled down at a nice even 2. And I turned up for the stream as a 2, and I told people why I'm a 2, because ultimately I'm trying to help them normalize, open up about their emotions, and understanding that they're just as valuable at there. And I have to believe that myself. I have to not just believe that, I have to live that myself. And it's a tough one when everything inside you, because the biggest thing about mine is I basically either, when that doctor once upon a time said you'll either be up here or down there, I either see myself as, why is nobody listening to me? Everybody should listen to me. Or, why is nobody listening to me? Why would anybody ever listen to me? Right. And very rarely anywhere in between. Full on egotistical or full on zero self-worth. And that's something that I'm very much trying to work through myself as well, because I 100% feel that about other people. I 100% feel that if someone comes to me and says, I'm really off today and this is what I'm going through and all the rest of it, I still love that person just as much. Like, that person is still 100% that to me. So why do I sit inside my own head and tell myself that I'm not? Have you got time for a couple more questions? Because I realize I've already kept you.
I'm here. I have time.
Sweet. Cassandra, well, to give you a little bit of contract, Cass is one of my mods, and they are legally blind. So basically, as they say at the beginning, I'm a sucker for questions about disability. So my bad. Don't apologize. And I love this question. It really goes on from what we were just talking about. How did you confront lack of productivity in a world that essentially thrives on you working till you drop? Did you ever have to confront some ableist views you didn't realize internalized till you became disabled? And did people treat you differently after? There's about 3 questions in there, but go with them in any order you like.
So, I'll do my best to remember them all.
I can reiterate if you need.
In a nutshell, I still fall into the pitfalls of pushing myself, trying to work towards that work till you drop thing, despite the fact that I do have these issues of quickly depleting energy and that sort of stuff, and it's still kind of it's a bad habit. It's a bad habit that I still work on every day. I think that people, they do treat me differently. Even in my band, like when I show up to a rehearsal and I just say, man, I'm just so tired. And then they say, oh, you're young. I was like, yeah, and like, if, would you say to like a World War II vet, like, walk it off if he's amputated below the knee? I mean, like, come on. I get it that you can't see it, but that this is something that I very, very, in a very real way deal with. And so people, they don't treat me differently. They treat me like I'm normal. And in many ways, I don't want to be treated differently, but I still want to be treated with consideration.
Yes.
And I don't want to be treated with kid gloves, but I want someone to understand that when I say that I can't, or if I say that I'm in a position that maybe this isn't the best thing for me to be doing right now, that you understand that I shouldn't have to go through a full dissertation as to, well, the reason why, back in the 1800s, they used to put people that they presumed having multiple sclerosis into a hot water test. I shouldn't have to give, like the history of MS for you to understand that what I'm going through is real. Yeah. And that I'm not just some millennial complaining, which
I'm a geriatric millennial, by the way.
Same here.
How's that for a title?
Right. Over here, I thought, calling myself a millennial, I was like kind of hip. And then they're like, oh, well, you were born in 87, you're a geriatric millennial. And I was like,
I'm the
really?
most geriatric, I think, like 82. I was born in 82, which is like the absolute top end. Like, I'm basically close to, if I might get kicked out one day, they might change their mind, like they did about my star sign. I was born a Pisces, but then they just budged me over to Aquarius. And
no wrong water sign. Yeah. So but like that, it was so funny. I forget who I was doing a show with. Actually, I think it was with my co-host Jason Pollock, or my host, I'm the co-host on the Hi, I'm Jason podcast. And we were on, I believe, with John Reynolds, who actually just won an Emmy for a award show that he wrote on. Amazing, hilarious writer and amazing comic artist. And we were in the middle of doing our show, and someone in the feed called me a boomer. And that's
I get called that too.
I'll say that's the second time that I tried to commit suicide. I'm like, really? Come on, I'm 33. How the fuck am I a boomer? And I feel like I'm a pretty progressive kind of dude. I'm an artist. Like, what about me says boomer? Like, is it the flat cap? I don't know what. Jesus. But
yeah. Well, I was gonna say, I've been called boomer a bunch of times. I just call it myself now. Because I'll be like, fine, yeah, I'm a boomer, but guess what? I'd rather be a boomer that knows some stuff than like a Gen Y, Gen Z, whoever that dismisses what we used to refer. Like, we used to think of older people as having wisdom. Now that was that was maybe misguided because not all older people are wise. This one is. But it's like, I'm like, fine. If you want to dismiss what I've got to say because of my age, it's like, yeah. It's imagine if I dismissed you because of yours. It's like, ooh.
Yeah.
It's like, it's okay. You're too young for your opinion to matter. That's always made me laugh about the okay boomer phrase. I remember actually having an argument with a reasonably prominent mental health awareness person in the UK about this phrase, someone who I no longer speak to. But basically, she was like really promoting it because she basically was promoting it as the antithesis to like, or the antidote to the phrase snowflake. It's like, oh, these older people have called us snowflakes and now we have boomer. And I was like, do you not think that the fact that you've been pissed off about getting called a name like all this time, that it's a little bit hypocritical to promote calling a name back? And she was like, no, because a snowflake just means has a lot of these connotations to it, whereas boomer just means a person from a certain generation. I'm like, you're telling me there's no connotations behind it? What it means is a person who's older and is irrelevant. That's what's hidden within there. It might be a shortened version of baby boomer, which basically means it's like my grandma's generation or whatever. Yeah. But I thought it was quite funny. It's like the hypocrisy of it. Like, okay, we're okay with we don't like you people you calling us snowflakes, but we're just going to call them boomers. And ultimately, what it means to me is an older person calling a younger person a snowflake means your experiences and your emotions and your interpretation of the situation is invalid. And a younger person calling an older person a boomer means your experiences and your emotions and your perspective on this experience is invalid. It is literally the same thing. And, you know,
Right. I love it. This person you were talking to, you made all these wonderful, just observations. And her response is, well, I'm rubber and you're glue.
Yeah, basically. Well, the funny thing about this particular person is that I've never named her. Her name's Natasha Devon. I've just done it now. But she leads something called the Mental Health Media Charter, which is basically it's rulings within about how the media should report on mental health and mental health issues. By the way, you'd have totally and utterly broken two of the charter in this interview because, first of all, and this is an American versus an English thing, we don't use the phrase committed suicide anymore because it stopped being a crime in 1977. And also the other thing is we definitely don't talk about methods. So when you were talking earlier about chipping, when your experience, and now the thing is, I've seen people using that same amount of rhetoric literally shut someone down mid-flow. I'm not obviously judging you in the slightest. I don't shut my audience, my guests down. I want them to tell their story in their words. But I've seen a person use those rules in an actual public speech to shut down someone who basically said that she was talking about that her brother had committed suicide. And then this person in the audience like, we don't say committed suicide anymore. It's completed suicide now, right? And then this woman who was in the middle of sharing her story about her loss and bereavements of her brother, is like, oh, okay, I don't want to talk about it anymore then. And it's like, great. These rules that are supposed to keep us safe. So anyway, so this person who is talking about how the media should responsibly they should pick their words and choose their language responsibly around mental health, is encouraging young people with mental health to actually refer to older people as boomers. It's like, I'm sorry, but get the fuck off the internet.
There's going to be a day that someone's going to call her boomer, and then she's going to realize that she started it.
Well, she didn't start it, but she shared a very badly written article. It wasn't written by her, but it was a very badly written article by someone who was clickbaiting or whatever. I don't know. But it really got my goat because, to be honest, I try not to get into arguments very often because they're pointless, especially over the internet. Because usually all that happens is the person with the bigger audience, I end up getting bloody dogpiled on by their people. And the thing is, there is a little bit of a clique within the mental health industry over here, and she's very much near the top of this clique. So basically, back then I'm thinking, great, now I'm going to be, blacklisted from the Mind Media Awards or whatever, all of this stuff. But the problem I've got with this is, these are the people that we are essentially trusting to make these kind of policies, or these are the people whose opinions on mental health seem to have the most traction. And yet their opinions, I don't want to just say outright they're trash. And in this instance, I think that opinion's pretty trash, because even when you explain name calling for name calling, my dad's bigger than your dad, blah, blah, blah. It's like, even when you explain this whole tit for tat thing, it's just an outright no, don't see it that way. And it's like there's no reasoning. There's no kind of discourse there of reasoning. And it's really kind of clear cut as far as I'm concerned. But hey, that's just my opinion, and I could be wrong. But this is the thing, is that this person is literally writing the rules on how the media should report on mental health, and is basically campaigning to get the media to sign up to their rules and to pledge to their rules, and getting blog artists and getting vloggers and getting streamers and getting authors all to sign up to this thing and say, we will follow these following rules. But it's like, well, the same kind of thought that's gone into these rules has also gone into promoting using the phrase boomer. I can't get behind it. And the thing is, the reason I had this conversation wasn't just to argue with this person. It was because I thought exactly what I've just said then. This person's got the ear of the public. People will listen to them. People will listen to her much more ready than listen to me. Am I a little bit jealous about that? Probably. Somewhere deep inside, I'm a human with an ego. So of course that's probably there to a degree. But I don't think it's the right thing to be teaching people. That's where it really lies. Anyway, I've gone off on a full-on rant. That's what we teach children in elementary and primary school. It's like, you don't call people names.
Mm-hmm. So why are we promoting it as adults? I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I think so much could be done if we just had a refresher course of first grade, and just the simple rules of first grade, Like, it doesn't matter if you lose your pencil. They're all yellow. Go fuck yourself. And don't call people names, okay? It's fine. It's going to be okay. Just be the best version of yourself. And you do that by being the best to other people. That's it. I also wanted to touch on something you had mentioned about, that our elders are wise.
Supposed to be.
No, absolutely. So one of those things that, I was mentioning earlier about my father and his addiction issues, and him not being a father figure actively for most of my life. I remember when he came to me and he apologized and said that I was so terrible. I don't know how anything that I did taught you to be the man that you are today. And I remember telling him, I said, you have no idea. You gave me something that most people don't get to see and witness and experience. I got to see how not to be. I got to see the consequences of bad choices.
Yeah.
I got to see the hurt, the despair of the quick fix rather than the long time work. And what more could I ask for? And most importantly, what did I get to witness in his last 5 years? Redemption.
Yeah.
The fact that, as a machismo puertorriqueño and as a Marine, my father was military. So between those two things, he was honestly, the Pope was more fallible than him, So it's a situation of just like, he came to me and said, I was wrong. I'm sorry. There's these lessons that we can learn. It's not about wisdom. It's that people that have come before us, older folks, there's something to learn from them. That doesn't necessarily mean wisdom. It means that there's a lesson there. We can see how fucked up an older person is because they decided to go the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine, before her father passed away, he said to me, he says, you know what? I can't believe how brave you are. I'm like, I sing songs and I tell dick jokes. Like, what's brave about that? He was in Vietnam as U.S. Army, and he came back, raised a family with 4 daughters, and worked for the electric company. Like really did what he had to do to have the life that he wanted. And he said, I worked for the electric company. There was so many things that I wanted to be, but it was safe.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. And he says, every day you wake up not knowing where the bread is coming from on your table.
Yeah.
Like you have to figure that out, and you have the bravery to know that that's going to come. But again, that's he wasn't always wise, but there was, again, that connotation of there was still something to learn.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think, the wise elder, it's not so much their wisdom, but the wisdom that we can acquire from them. So that's my rebranding moment for the.
I like it, and but I think the thing is, the wise elder does exist. Like there are definitely people of an older generation that have lessons to teach us, and it's almost becoming ingrained now that, and I know times change faster now than they ever have done before. Like probably by the time, but I imagine if we were to check the internet before and after this interview, probably the whole world's changed twice. But like that whole thing of it used to be that we looked up to these people, and I think where that went wrong is because you only need like a small but enough number of elder people to not be wise, to pass on bad things, or to actually get out of touch with reality and where reality's up to, for us to believe that that's the story now. It's like but I think when it becomes this generalization, it's like the thing is, like the generalization about the word snowflake is that all millennials are weak, or they can't handle like the same level of things that came before, right? So, and the thing is, what that doesn't take into account in the slightest is actually, we all handle things differently, like all of us. So, but at the same time, it's like now the generalization the other way is that all older people are irrelevant, and they shouldn't have a say in things. They couldn't possibly understand what we're going through and all the rest of it. It's like, do you know what? Kind of disagree. It's like, I think for me, I'm a dad of 2 teenagers now, like mid to late teens as well now, and it's what's been an interesting experience for me and all of that is actually seeing. I mean, my dad was not a dad to me until the last 2 years of his life. His addiction was my older brother. It's like he just didn't act like he had 2 sons until the end of his life, and when him and my older brother stopped speaking. And I'm always grateful for that redemption story. I'm always grateful for those last 2 years rather than the 17 before that where I didn't really have a dad. And I learned a lot of how not to be a dad from him. But a lot of his personality and a lot of like the way, like the example I always give is dad jokes, right? Like you always think to yourself, oh my God, how can people tell dad jokes? They're so terrible and all the rest of it, right? You don't give a shit. Like it's like I actually enjoy getting a really big groan and an eye roll just as much as I enjoy getting a good laugh. The joke is like it's the ones in the middle that I don't like. It's the ones that don't get any reaction. But it's like I'm just like, it's like, why would parents ever do things to embarrass their kids? And then you're like, there's this little devil inside of you that's just like they're in there with their friends. I could totally go and say something totally embarrassing, and you swear you're never going to do it. And it's like, and also the phrase "when I was young." Oh my God, I've caught myself say that a few times. And they're going to. I have literally said before, one of the things I'm looking forward to most in life is them having kids, and then me sitting there in my armchair being all gramps in the corner, and listening to them say, when I was younger, I was just going to be like, yeah, you said you were never going to say that. So, because I said I'd never was going to say that, and now I've said it. Therefore, I know it's an absolute fact that they're going to. Another question from chat is, do you have anyone in your life that does understand your challenges and will take them seriously? Friends, family, or peers who get it enough to help you instead?
No. Next question. No, I'm joking. So I do have my best friend in the whole world. His name is Barry McCommon. He is someone that I talk to daily, and we found ourselves growing as people simultaneously, even though he's 15 years older than me. It's just like, wow, like the light bulb clicked around the same time, and we are our own checks and balances. And so Barry is such a big part of my life, in the sense that when I'm feeling like, when I do have my low moments and I start to spiral and I start to choose to like wrap myself up in that nice duvet of just, I'm gonna be a sad boy. And he's just like, just so you know, there's a friend here who misses you, and you can be a sad boy, but maybe you can choose to be a sad boy with me. Yeah. And, and he's always there, and he's so understanding and so respectful. And he's one of my biggest cheerleaders. I was married. I was married for 8 years. We were together for 9. We actually finally made it all official beginning of July that we are no longer married. And I am now with an amazing young woman who listens to how I feel. She is receptive to my honesty. The fact that a lot of what affects me physically starts with how things affect me emotionally. And she is so open to hearing about what is going on emotionally. The fact that I will just at the drop of a hat, just say, I'm thinking something, and can we just talk about it for a minute? And she is right there. It's the first time in like over a decade that I feel like I actually have someone who wants to be my partner. I have that. I have amazing colleagues. That, again, because I'm very transparent, how can I expect for them to understand unless I am truthful with them? Yeah. And so I am incredibly truthful about what MS is like for me as a performer. And I have cultivated this family around me that understands what I can do, and also what I see as limitations, and how they can help me through those limitations so that I can feel as strong and be as whole and the best version of myself, for my for my public, and for them as my teammates, my family, as my friends, and my confidants. I'm very, very fortunate to have all of these amazing people. But it starts again with my best friend Barry. Yeah.
Right, 2 very, very, very tiny, quick questions, and then we're going to wrap this up. Otherwise, I won't be able to put it up as a podcast. when they go past a certain length, it's just like, damn it! I either have to edit or not put it up. I
totally understand.
Cass wants to know what's your sign.
What's my sign?
Yeah,
you flirt. I am a Libra.
If you jump in my channel in a minute, I'm sure Cass will analyse that crap out of that. And Real Scottish Genius would like to know, your lady, does she have a sister?
No, she has 2 brothers. One who is a drill sergeant for the Marine Corps, and the other who is in the U.S. Navy, like her father. So I'm terrified. She has a family filled with people that could kill me. So. But good news.
I mean, most people have families that are filled with people that can kill me just by saying something insensitive about me.
That's true. It's like not really that T-shirt. What does that mean?
Yeah, lots of things. Oh, my Stitch shirt. And maybe I'll put it on Instagram because I've not put it up yet. But I like my wife cannot stand my Stitch shirt. I got a Hawaiian shirt that's got Stitch, as in from Lilo and Stitch, all over it. It's the best thing in the world, apart from the fact that apparently. Apparently wherever it came from, 2XL is 6XL, because 2X this is 2XL and fits me nice and snug. Whereas that is like I could wear it twice. I'm thinking of making like a pair, like maybe a cravat out of the excess material or something. But
please, if you can make two, send one to me, please. I will gladly wear it. It's a nice little ascot.
Well, yeah, stitch work by Dave. So finally, before I don't really want to ever let you go, but and we've already discussed it. It's Justin Gonzalez tenor everywhere. But is that it? Is there a website? Is there places people can go and see videos of you and performing, or is there a YouTube? What have we got?
JustinGonzalezTenor.com.
.com.
There it is.
That's it, people. You heard it here first.
Sunday. Justin Gonzalez live. Information at JustinGonzalez.com. Yeah, no, yeah, JustinGonzalez.com. There's links to my Facebook page, my YouTube page, and my Instagram. Follow, drop a line if you have questions that we didn't get to. Private message me, and I would love to have a chat. And again, this was amazing. I needed this a lot. Thank you so much.
I needed this too. I'm not a 2 out of 5 anymore. Like like look, you're going to keep me up more than Muay Thai did. So don't let me coach now, because he'll be like, oh man. It's been absolutely amazing finally getting to have a proper chat with you, and thank you so much for coming on and joining me.
An absolute pleasure. Please let's do this again.
Absolutely.